Hey there guys, Nordic Warrior here, welcome back to my video game review series. Today we're going to be looking at The Sopranos: Road to Respect, released in 2006, developed by 7 Studios, based of course on the widely popular TV series The Sopranos. So for those of you who don't know, The Sopranos was a TV series that aired from 1999 to 2007. It's a show that was very popular back then and to this day is considered by many to be a classic. Me personally, I was never a big fan of The Sopranos. In fact, I tried to get into it and I just couldn't. I got bored of it very quickly and if truth be told, it just wasn't really my cup of tea. Nonetheless, the show has many fans and, like with many popular TV shows and movies of the mid-2000s, it came with its own PS2 tie-in. These tie-ins usually tended to vary in quality, but on occasion you would get one that bucked the trend and really took you by surprise. So was The Sopranos: Road to Respect one of them? Or was this just another in a long line of generic PS2 tie-ins? Let's talk about it. So the game is essentially a third-person action-adventure beat-em-up, with some bare-bones RPG elements. The story of the game takes place during the 5th and 6th seasons of the show. At this point in time I haven't actually watched those seasons, so I can't really comment on whether or not the game is officially canon, and how accurate the narrative is. You play as Joey LaRocca, the illegitimate son of Salvatore Big Pussy Bonpensiero, who was a prominent character in the show in some of the early seasons.
Hey, Joey.
It's too bad you can't be here.
Hey, I had my run, now it's your turn.
In the beginning of the game, Joey is recruited into the family business by Tony Soprano, and basically has to work his way up the ranks, performing tasks for Tony and his captains.
Maybe we can find something for you to do.
No kidding? You do that?
Now go out the back way. Now.
This sounds a lot more interesting than it is because unfortunately, this game is about as generic as you can get in regards to its overall gameplay. You basically spend the entire game following the exact same formula. You speak to an NPC, get tasked with traversing to a set location to talk to, negotiate with, or intimidate another NPC.
Hold on, you can't do this.
Change of plans. You are writing a review. A 5-star rave.
I can't do that. The best is 4.
You want me to keep going, is that it?
5. It'll be 5-star, all right?
And say something nice about Artie. Man works his ass off.
This then leads to something going wrong, and you ultimately have to beat the absolute crap out of everybody in the area, rinse and repeat.
I'd be worried about your own ass, white boy.
Like I said, where's AJ?
They call me Fighting McPuncherstein.
Seriously, I'm not kidding. You talk to an NPC, go to the next area, beat the absolute crap out of the entire room, and move on to the next room to do the exact same thing again. Rinse and repeat. At first this was pretty fun, but it gets old really fast in my opinion. The combat of the game seems pretty refined with there being a separation between light and heavy attacks. You can also grab a hold of enemies and perform ground attacks, as well as several finishing specials. These finishing moves look pretty cool, some of them are even quite funny, such as twisting your enemy's balls. But unfortunately, it won't be long before you get tired of seeing them. I found myself wanting to rage quit due to how overly repetitive and tedious the combat of the game actually is. Another thing that annoyed me is the fact that enemies will constantly grapple, leading to you spending the majority of certain fights on the floor. This is especially annoying when surrounded by enemies. It's not exactly difficult, it's just so boring and tedious. You can pick up various objects in your environment to use as melee weapons, such as glass bottles and various other blunt objects. This makes combat a bit easier and makes it a little bit more interesting, I suppose, giving it a bit of variety. Enemies can also pick up these items and use them against you, so it's balanced out a little bit. Occasionally you will have an NPC ally on your side who is usually one of the characters from the show. I found it quite hilarious seeing Christopher Moltisanti, who was a bit of a snivelling bitch on the show, from what I remember, being hard as nails in this game. Seriously, there's a level where you have to go to a gym and you end up beating the absolute crap out of a bunch of roided up bodybuilders for seemingly no reason. And I swear it's like Christopher Moltisanti was kicking ass like a prime Manny Pacquiao, but I digress. In addition to the melee combat, you also have a gun which you carry throughout the game that can get you out of trouble if need be. Unfortunately though, there are several problems with it. For one, the aiming absolutely sucks. There appears to be no lock-on system, and pretty much every time an enemy was in close proximity to me, Joey would aim the gun in the completely wrong direction. And even pistol whipping enemies does next to nothing. Enemies also take way too many bullets to put down, and to top it all off, using your gun is pointless anyway, because if you use it too much, meaning a few times, you lose all respect with the gang and Tony and Paulie will whack you.
One favor, guys, please. Not in the eyes.
Too bad, kid. Lots of fish in the sea.
Speaking of respect, you have a respect meter that indicates your overall standing with the gang. Complete missions efficiently, and you will gain respect. Should you lose respect, you can refill your meter by paying tribute to one of the captains. In all seriousness, you could probably just ignore this and it likely wouldn't make a difference to the overall game, making it pretty pointless in my opinion. You pay tribute by simply giving money that you obtain during the game at designated points in the game. You can also pay to unlock bonus features, more on those later. The game has a decent amount of location variety, at least in terms of aesthetics, with several locations of the show being featured. Unfortunately, there is no reason to really explore any of these areas other than the occasional, somewhat funny NPC dialogue.
Would you take a look at this? No way, Fagola.
Another thing that really disappointed me is that the game feels incredibly linear, with you having to follow a set path, and there being little to no deviation. A game being linear isn't necessarily a bad thing, but when you consider that this game is supposed to simulate being in the mob, you would expect more of a GTA type experience, with choices and more of a sandbox feel.
Please, my inhaler, it's in my doctor's office, right next to the bathroom. God bless you.
Unfortunately, you get none of that here. You don't really get to make any choices other than dialogue, which pretty much always leads to the same outcome anyway. Seriously, the game gives you the option at times to respond aggressively, calmly, or to remain neutral, and regardless of what you choose, nothing about the game's narrative or any of its missions really changes. One thing the game can lay claim to, however, is its authenticity, with several of the actors from the show, such as James Gandolfini as Tony Soprano.
I rolled the dice, and now you got him throwing dope parties and being stalked by the Mulunyan?
I was just trying to help AJ.
You should have called me.
Or Michael Imperioli as Christopher Moltisanti.
See how it works when you're one of us? Someone's always got your back. Of course, you ain't ever gonna be one of us. Nice try, kid. This is direct from Tony.
And several others. I'm sure fans of the show will appreciate that. The protagonist Joey is actually voiced by Christian Malin, who was apparently one of the actors who was considered to be in the show at one point. The game's overall presentation varies from mediocre to poor. The graphics don't look terrible for a PS2 game, but they don't look great either. The character models do resemble the characters from the show and the locations look okay for the most part, but they don't really stand out. The game also has some pretty major bugs and glitches, mostly clipping and collision detection problems. In fact, one of the bonus features of the game is a blooper reel, a compilation of hilarious bugs and glitches that were found in the game. That was pretty funny. Speaking of bonus features, you have a minigame where you can play poker with Tony and the gang. This is actually a lot of fun and it's a welcome addition to the game, adding a bit of much needed variety. You can also unlock a whole bunch of concept art for the game, as well as some backstage footage of the voice cast, recording some of their lines. Features like this in a video game are always appreciated by me. The game doesn't really have much of a soundtrack, with most of the game having no music at all, and the music it does have is usually just background club music. unless you count the main theme song from the show playing in the main menu. So all in all, I would say this game is just pretty standard, a half-arsed licensed game. As far as mob games go, you can do so much better than this, and if you are a fan of The Sopranos, it'll probably disappoint you that most of the overall themes and narrative of the show is missing from this game, focusing heavily on combat and action. Like I said before though, some of you might appreciate the voice cast and the visual aesthetics resembling that of the show, but other than that, I can think of no reason to recommend this game to anybody. I mean, if you want a game that simulates being in the mob, you could just play any of the GTA or Mafia games and get a much better and more immersive experience than this. That's pretty much all I have to say about the game. I give Sopranos Road to Respect a generous 3 out of 10. The game is just a generic licensed game with little to no replay value and a few bonus features you might enjoy, but it's certainly not a game I would recommend you go out of your way to get. Thanks for watching guys, let me know what you guys think, stay tuned for more retrospective video game reviews. Once again, I have a lot of reviews coming to the channel in the near future. Thanks for watching and God bless.
I thought you might be bitter.
Bitter? No, just forget about it. Go enjoy yourself.